Hi there, Coach and Hoka One One athlete Sage Canaday here with another training talk. Today we're going to talk about sub 220 marathon training, specifically sharing my old training log. In my last talk I was talking about running my PR in the half marathon 104 and then springboarding off of that to running my marathon PR, and we'll show you some of those training log clips as well as some old archived workout footage of when I ran my PR in the marathon, but I also ran under 220 half a dozen times over the years. And the philosophy of training has kind of changed over time because I was in a pro road running group when I ran my fastest marathons, but then I also ran under 220 4 times when I was doing mountain ultra trail running and just kind of coaching myself here at altitude in Boulder, Colorado. Now, I also realize, and this is a full disclaimer, that a lot of you, maybe that's not exactly your time goal. Maybe you're looking to finish your first marathon. Maybe you're looking to crack 4 hours or 3:30, or maybe even crack 3 hours and qualify for the Boston Marathon or something like that. And so I want this talk to kind of be a reflection of general training principles and workouts that will kind of just get you a faster marathon in general. And I do realize it's kind of a clickbait title when I throw out some of my personal best times, and 220 very specifically, when I could just say how to run a faster marathon. But I've already done talks like that, I think, and done like the different types of long runs you should do for marathon training, and you could check out that whole playlist of marathon training on this channel. But to get started, now that I got that off my chest, hope you're doing well. We're going to look at the training log. This was back 10 years ago, almost exactly, in February of 2011, and I was coming off of that 104 half marathon PR. It was probably one of the best races of my life, definitely was at the half marathon distance, and I took 7 days totally off. I took a total break. It's not really a total break though, because you still retain quite a bit of fitness even taking 7 days off. But I started with lower mileage after that, and I started with mainly easy runs, and that's kind of the general thing. I went from 0 to 54 miles a week, or about 80K a week, which could be a lot depending on your situation. And most people, we advise probably to take 2 weeks off after a big training cycle. So that's the idea, is you start from a break, you start healthy before you launch into easy aerobic pace running, meaning you're running at a relaxed pace where you could carry on a conversation for basically all your miles in those first couple of weeks. But like I said, I was in this pro road running group, the Hanson's Brooks Distance Project at the time, and this spring, going through the training log here, very quickly they got me going into workouts like 3 times 2 mile repeats, or 3 times, I guess that's about 3 kilometers. And the whole idea was that you map out your target threshold or long workouts kind of based around your marathon goal pace. And that's kind of what we've been doing with the training plans that Coach Sandy and I have at Higher Running, formerly Sage Running. You're working off of goal pace. When you're working on a flat road, you need to say, if I want to crack 3 hours in the marathon, if I want to qualify for Boston, you know you have to get comfortable at these very specific race paces. And it just so happens, like I was saying in my last talk, my half marathon pace is actually very close to what we call threshold or lactate threshold or tempo run pace. And then marathon pace is actually just slightly slower than half marathon pace. And truth be told, in this cycle, in this specific cycle, when I ran, ended up running my PR of 2:16:52, we were actually training for a 2:15. The Hanson brothers are very aggressive with their training. We trained for a goal pace of running under 2:15 flat in the marathon, which is about 5:08 per mile pace, or about, I think that's 3:10 per kilometer pace. And so the workouts start there with these 3 times 2 miles, 3 times 3K, and then it gets faster. So in general, you progress over the months to running not just marathon pace, but then all of a sudden it becomes 10 seconds per mile faster than marathon goal pace, or 6 seconds per kilometer faster than marathon goal pace, which actually almost starts getting closer to half marathon race pace, which, like I said, is basically lactate threshold or tempo run. And for you, if you're in a different time range, that actually might even be closer to your 10K race pace, or at least your current in between 10K race pace and half marathon pace. So that's kind of a gold standard of intensity and speed, because you're not super fast, not so much faster than your marathon goal pace, but it's just enough to be faster. 10 seconds, 20 seconds a mile, 6 seconds per kilometer, 12 seconds per kilometer faster than your goal marathon pace, well, that's going to make marathon pace feel a lot more comfortable. And so in general, those kinds of workouts are long workouts. They're big mileage workouts where you're doing repeats. And I'll scroll through the training log here as we get farther into the training. Heading into April, the Hansons are also known for doing what we call, well, hard long runs. We were smashing 20-mile or 32K long runs, and I'm going to comment more on that later when I got into ultra training, and also ran one of probably my best marathon, which was at Boston in 2015. But we would run long runs pretty hard, and we would also run pretty high mileage. So that's the other factor with this whole marathon training, ultra marathon training thing. And what we usually try to preach in our training plans as well is that you want to run consistently high mileage and build that big aerobic base. And for me, it is all relative because you don't want to get hurt, and it's based on your experience level, your durability level, how much time you have, but consistently running high mileage. And for me, during that half marathon stint, I was running only 90 miles a week, or 110 kilometers per week. No, it's more than that. Put the kilometers there. I guess it's like 150 kilometers a week. And when I get into full marathon training, though, I'm running upwards of 120, 140 miles a week. But in this segment, in this several month long, 12-week segment or so, I was mainly just averaging around 115 to 120 miles a week, which was not my highest. I had run marathon training blocks where I'd average closer to 130 miles a week, and it kind of overtrained me or made me tired. But maybe you're in a different range. Maybe you're looking to get from 50 miles a week to averaging 60 miles a week, 80K a week to 100K a week. And if you get into that kind of volume, that's a pretty big commitment for most people. That could really help with your endurance and strength and stamina and building that aerobic base, so to speak, so you could maintain more in a long distance race like the marathon. So we get into the workouts more. The bread and butter of the workouts were mainly those long repeats. And looking at the April schedule and these trainings and the workouts, I ended up getting up to 5 times 2 miles here on March 24th, 5 times 2 miles, or about 5 times 3K, 3.2K, and I'm averaging 5:06 per mile pace on these. So I'm running just a little over 10 minutes for 2 mile repeats with an 800 meter jog recovery in less than 3.5 minutes. And I said it was cold and windy, and it was like a 17.5 mile morning there. So getting down to faster paces, getting over 100 miles a week in training already. And then by the time April rolled around, this race was in June, first week of June in 2011, the San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon. So, I'm doing steady 20-mile long runs with some miles down into getting close to marathon pace. And that's another general trend with our marathon training is we don't just go out and cover long runs to go the distance. Some long runs are about that, but a lot of long runs, if you're very specific with marathon training and optimizing your performance and your fastest possible time for a marathon, you need to start hitting some miles late in a long run, maybe the whole second half of a long run, that are getting pretty close to that goal marathon pace, maybe even a couple miles faster. So sometimes we'll throw in workouts where we do what we call a fartlek or speed play, where I do 3-minute surges, and I'll pull up a clip, some footage of actually when I was training out here in Boulder at altitude, one of my best 24-mile long runs, or 38K long runs, I averaged around 540 per mile pace at altitude in the Boulder Res, and I was doing 8 times 3 minutes fast, 3 minutes easy, but on those 3-minute fast segments, I'm running closer to under half marathon pace, or closer to 10K pace. So I'm running much faster than marathon pace on tired legs, basically. And it's an uneven pace, but it's a fast average. And it was a very tiring, long workout there. It's probably one of my best long runs here in Boulder at altitude. That was back in 2015, before I got 16th place at the Boston Marathon. So definitely good to get that strength in. But back on this training log cycle, the old training log, April 17th, I'm getting up to 3 times 3 miles now for the threshold workouts. And 3 times 3 miles, or 3 times 5K, that's a long workout. But you notice I started a month before with only 2 times 3 miles, or 2 times 5K. And we're practicing drinking fluids on this. Ran 15:20, 15:18, 15:19, so nice consistent paces, and just under 5:08 per mile pace, 5:05 per mile pace about. So That was a good workout for me. But it got better. It got better. 125 miles a week later. So that was pretty high volume for me heading into this segment. And eventually we get down. The other key component with the Hansen system, but also just in college doing marathons and then doing marathons as an ultra runner, is still need some element of a faster gear of speed. So we talk about, marathon goal pace. We're doing long runs slightly slower, but then we're also doing these threshold or tempo workouts at 10K to half marathon pace. Well, every now and then, not very often, not every week necessarily even, but maybe every 10 days, at least once every 2 weeks, depending on your profile, you need a speedier session. Speedier meaning more like going to the track and doing kilometer repeats or mile repeats. And those have always been kind of the bread and butter. I know a lot of marathon programs, people do Yazo 800s or they're doing 400s. I think most people get more bang for their buck doing kilometer repeats on the track because you could still run 5K or 10K race pace, and it's great for your VO2 max. You get breathing really hard, heart rate gets really high, over 95%, and it mainly trains the legs to really spin fast and get efficient, stimulate some fast twitch muscle fibers, so to speak, so that marathon pace feels a lot more comfortable, and it hopefully improves your efficiency at all slower paces. So, 8 times 1,000 meters on the track. So I had April 29th here. 8 times a kilometer on the track, is just running right under 3 minutes per kilometer, 2:57 to 3 flat with a 3-minute jog in between. So at Hansen's, it was generally 20 seconds per mile faster than your goal marathon pace. So that's about just under 450 per mile pace. Goal marathon pace was 508 per mile. That's 18 seconds, about 20 seconds per mile faster. But for you, it might even be a greater difference, 25 seconds per mile faster or 15 to 20 seconds per kilometer faster than your goal marathon pace. And maybe you're only doing 6 times a kilometer, 6 times 1,000 meters, 126 miles that week. And finally, just right before the race, I was hitting some really good workouts, mile repeats at 447 average, looks like. And then at Hansen's, we would do what they call the simulator workout, which was you'd basically run 26 kilometers or about 16 miles. It would basically be all out. It was supposed to be at goal marathon pace, but we'd always basically race it. And you could see this clip. We actually got in our uniforms. We practiced drinking fluids. This was before the Olympic trials in 2012, where I ran my second fastest marathon, 2:18:30-ish at the Olympic trials, finished mid-pack there, 2012. Note, this was before carbon fiber plated shoes. I ran all these sub 220 marathons in shoes that didn't have carbon fiber in them. But we were running the simulator on a Florida course to simulate the heat of Houston. The Olympic trials were in Houston that year. And we were all training for sub 215, and we all ran like 2:14 marathon pace for this 16 mile or 26 kilometer simulator run. But it's not something that I continued to do after I left the program, and it's not something I necessarily think that everyone should do. You don't have to do a simulator run, but it is good to simulate marathon race pace for long distances. So the idea is that you are spending a lot of miles around your marathon goal pace, and you are getting very comfortable and very familiar with that marathon goal pace. Now, it could be the last 10 miles or the last 16K of a 20-mile long run, 32K long run. It could be you're doing these up-tempo runs is what we call them, Coach Shandy and I, where you're running extended stretches, 8 to 10 miles at your marathon pace quite regularly. But like I said, you also get a lot of bang for your buck doing these slightly faster workouts closer to your lactate threshold, half marathon pace, like the 2 times 6 miles or 2 times 5 miles. And that's another bread and butter workout that I want to talk to real quick. We did the 2-mile repeats, the 3-mile repeats. Now we're up to the bread and butter workout. And I'll fast forward here because I don't want this talk to be too long. But even before in Hansen's, but even before Hansen's, when I was in college running marathons, but also as an ultra runner, probably most recently when I ran 2:19 at Houston a couple years ago, I did a bread and butter workout. And note this was at sea level. It wasn't at altitude here in Boulder. I'd struggle more. Where I did 2 times 5 miles or 2 times 8K on the track. We call it 40 lap pride. I got a whole video on that workout, 40 lap pride, 2 times 20 laps on the track. I did go backwards on the second rep, I think. But, and I'm trying to run at least 10 seconds a mile faster than goal marathon race pace. And I only took a 5-minute rest in between each 8K or each 5-mile segment. And in this particular clip I ran, I was running about 5:05 per mile pace. So I was doing actually a little slower, 5:10 per mile pace. So I ran at 25:50 for 8K, or about 5 miles, and then did a 25:48, I believe. They were about the same. But if under 26 minutes for an 8 kilometer, 2 times in a row, with only a 5-minute rest in between, practicing taking a gel, practicing drinking fluid on the run at that pace in your race shoes. Again, I think I did that in the Hoka One One Tracers, but before that, one of my best marathons probably was in the Hoka One One Clifton, obviously sponsored by that brand, but I digress there. That's kind of the training that goes into it. Consistent high mileage, doing a lot of long workouts, and doing some quality long runs, getting very familiar with right around marathon pace. It doesn't exactly have to be marathon pace. It could be a little slower, it could be a little faster. Then every now and then, not losing, totally losing your speed, still going to the track and doing some kilometer repeats or even mile repeats. It could be 800s as well, but usually you get more bang for your buck if you're in the 3 to 5 minute interval repetition realm, if you want to work on what we call VO2 max, or your maximum aerobic capacity. I've done talks on that as well, but it's more for the leg turnover. It's more for the leg turnover and the efficiency. So that's my talk on sub 220 marathon training, specific to more of my PRs. It's actually kind of sad because I tried to qualify for the Olympic trials the last 2 go-arounds, which was a sub 219, and I missed by 12 seconds at Boston. I missed by 50 seconds last time. So it was really a matter of missing by seconds rather than minutes. And if the standard was 220, maybe I could have gone to 4 Olympic trials by now. But you know, it is what it is. Maybe you could relate to that, trying to qualify for Boston or sneak under 3:30 or sneak under 3 hours. It's a game where you're really fighting at the margins and you're trying to maximize your potential, but you're also trying to stay healthy. Trying to stay healthy because health is wealth, and getting in this variety of workouts. And I realize this is a more advanced talk, but those are the kind of the general principles that have helped in my marathon racing, and having that consistency of at least running between 219 and 220 a lot of times. And then there are a couple other races I ran, like 220.02 and 220.30, so just over 220. And then a couple disasters where you bunk really hard and you're walking and it's a meltdown. But I digress there. Thanks so much for all your support on here. Thanks to the Patreon supporters for really making this channel possible. Hope you're doing well. Shout out to title sponsor Hoka One One for keeping the dream alive. You know us, any service, any distance. Coach Sandy and I sell training plans. Check out her channel, Running Wild. I'll link to it up there, as well as her video and vlog updates for more mountain ultra trail running, form stuff, running form analysis, workout videos, training talks. You know us. Really appreciate your support. Hope you're doing well, and stay tuned for more VO2 Max Productions.